Tom Lazuka, an Asylum's Devil's Night, a 6x52 Toro that was released in 2015-2016 by Tom Lazuka, the owner of Asylum Cigars, and distributed by Christian Iroa of CLE Aladino Cigars, and made in Honduras at Christian Iroa's factories. A Honduran puro, as it employs all tobacco from Honduras for the wrapper, the binder, and the filler. And this was something that Tom Lazuka, who is a Detroit native, got the idea for in order to help the firefighters of Detroit. So a small portion of the money went to a charity for the firefighters. Now, I don't think you can buy this cigar anymore. I bought this cigar last year in the month of October, so it's been sitting in my humidor for almost a year at about 67, 68 RH. And like I said, it was a limited production. It was about 5,000 cigars made in the 6x52 Toro size, and another 5,000 in the 5.5x46 Corona Gorda size. And again, to benefit the firefighters, a worthy cause, especially since he is from Detroit. Well, Devil's Night, if you're watching this, well, if you're not watching this right now, you're at a Halloween party, or you're creating mischief as a Devil's Night rioter. But if you're watching this after, then it means you made it home safely, and that's a good thing. But in Detroit, a lot of people didn't know if they would make it home safely to actually enjoy Halloween night. Now, Mischief Night has its beginnings way back in the 1700s in England, and Mischief Night picked up in the 30s and the 40s in the United States. I mean, all across the East Coast, there were all kind of pranks and vandalisms, and all kinds of weird things happened on October 30th. We're not even talking Halloween here. We're talking October 30th. But in Detroit, October 30th, for a long time, has been a dreadful night. And it's something that began in the late 60s with the anti-police riots, and then further advanced into just something that people liked to do, almost as if it was a yearly purge, and took it to another level in regards to arson, vandalism, petty crime, larceny, you name it. All kinds of things were happening on October 30th. So, the Detroit riots of 1967 ignited when decades of extreme poverty, racial profiling, and police brutality against African Americans in the city reached an apex. According to History.com, the first fire was set by rioters at 6:30 a.m. on July 23, 1967. After predominantly white police raided a black after-hours club that was hosting a party for veterans returning from Vietnam. By mid-morning, every policeman and fireman in Detroit was called to duty. On 12th Street, officers fought to control the unruly mob. Firemen were attacked as they tried to battle the flames, which resulted in 1,400 buildings eventually being burned during the 5-day riot. History.com reported this. The so-called 12th Street riot was the third worst riot in U.S. history, occurring during a period of fever-pitch racial strife and numerous race riots across America. Only the New York draft riots of 1863 and the Los Angeles riots of 1992 caused more destruction. After the riot, then-President Lyndon Johnson reportedly appointed a National Advisory Commission on Civil Disorders, often known as the Kerner Commission. The report cited What the rioters appeared to be seeking was fuller participation in the social order and the material benefits enjoyed by the majority of American citizens. Rather than rejecting the American system, they were anxious to obtain a place for themselves in it. While fires set on the night before Halloween in Detroit didn't become commonplace until the 1970s, Mass Magazine reported that the roots of the fires lie in the 1967 riots. Although 1983 is widely recognized as the official beginning of the Devil's Night because of its dramatic increase in dumpster fires, there is evidence to suggest that there was already low-level insurgency associated with Halloween dating back to at least 1979, and conceivably to 1967 itself. Mass Magazine noted this. It was only in 1984, probably due to a combination of the widespread media hype of the 1983 arsons and the World Series victory by the Detroit Tigers, that on October 31st, there was a marked increase in building fires. By 1984, more than 800 fires were reported in Detroit on Devil's Night, and fires set after the initial riot were rooted in acts of vandalism, not acts of rebellion. At the height of the arson, the city created a task force with the goal of reducing the number of fires and vandalism on Devil's Night. Detroit also renamed the night before Halloween Angel's Night to change the perception of the holiday. These coordinated efforts between the citizens and law enforcement have significantly reduced violence and vandalism leading up to Halloween in Detroit. The days of over 800 fires over the Halloween weekend are long behind us, Mayor Mike Dugan said in 2016. According to the news, it was a typical night in the city. It wasn't any higher than what you would normally have. While the arson in Detroit is the most well-known modern-day form of destruction associated with the night before Halloween, vandalism and violence have been rampant on Mischief Night for centuries, and the violence has always seemed to increase during the economic unrest. Additionally, Halloween itself reportedly began to be associated with witches in 1590 after the North Berwick witch trials, which may have led to the deaths of as many as 4,000 people, beginning in Scotland. Look, obviously there's a long history, of arson and vandalism in Detroit, and what Tom Lasuka wanted to do was just give a little bit back to the men and women who sacrificed their lives in order to save the people of the city, in order to put out the fires. Didn't matter who set them. Didn't matter that it was illegal, which it was. Still is, of course. But their job was to go out and put these fires out, to risk their lives and put these fires out. And we all know that it isn't fair to... I have firefighters in my family. It isn't fair when firefighters have to go out because someone decided that it would be fun to watch it burn, or that it would be okay to just set a little fire, not realizing that that little fire would increase and create a bigger fire and possibly kill people, and if not kill people, destroy property in that people need or that people own. And it's against the law. Of course, we know this. Arson is against the law. But when firefighters put their lives at risk for the stupidity of some idiot that wants to see something burn, it doesn't take anything away from their courageous act and their I just think of all of the families that are waiting for the firefighters to get home, waiting for word on whether their husband, their wife, just is he okay? Is she okay? And as I say this, you hear firefighters in the background, and they're doing something today. And it couldn't be more fitting. It couldn't be more fitting, because when you hear that, you don't know where they're going and what they're going to do and what they're going to confront. You don't know if they're going to make it out okay. Sometimes fires happen naturally. Sometimes wires burn out. Sometimes things short circuit. Sometimes there are legitimate accidents. Even if they're careless, negligent accidents, they're accidents. They weren't intended. But when you have these type of situations where you have hundreds of people setting fires across a city just to watch it burn, and you know that your family member, your loved one, has to go out there and face that and put themselves in danger, it's just not right. It's just not right. And I could see how Tom Lasuka took that to heart and felt that he needed to do something. And even if it was just a small gesture like this, putting out two Vitolas, a cigar with two Vitola sizes, limited edition, 5,000, 10,000 cigars in total, with a good portion going to the firefighters' charities, it just showed that someone cared. And it needed to happen. Someone needed to care. So does it matter if it's not a good cigar? Because ultimately, the people that just want to smoke a good cigar and don't want to hear about any history or anything to do with the cigar, why it's, I know Asylum, I like their big ring gauge cigars, I know what they're about more or less, I know their Honduran tobacco, the collaborations, but is it a good cigar? Well, what I've gotten so far in this first inch is some toasted bready notes of sweetness, a very, very light pepper, and honestly, I don't think that when they saw it, or when they created the blend, that they were looking for anything. They weren't looking to do anything crazy. I think that they were looking to just make a decent cigar that would please a lot of different palates, and perhaps not be as pepper forward or as some of the things that we find in Honduran tobacco. A lot of people have misconceptions about Honduran tobacco or have had bad experiences with Honduran tobacco. The quality of Honduran tobacco hasn't always caught the eye of the consumer in the way that the Dominican and the Nicaraguan tobacco has caught our eyes, right? Or our taste buds. But here we are, and we're smoking a Honduran puro for a good cause. And look, it's 2021 right now, so it's been years since this cigar has been available. But I just felt like when I got my hands on it, that I would do a review on it and talk about some of the things that I know mean something to Detroit natives and people like Tom Lasuka. So yeah, just some sweet bready notes with mild pepper. Ash just fell off after a little over an inch. And again, this is a 6x52 Toro. It was the only Vitola size I could find. I paid about $13 for it, which was the original MSRP for it. I'm really not going to expect any major transitions here, but we will take note of it. Look, this began really mild. It's kind of medium right now, and it's on the low end of medium, which is fine by me, actually. It's really fine by me. This is easy going on the palate. There's really nothing to complain about here. Uh, Over the years, obviously, I've read reviews on this cigar, and from what I remember, people weren't very impressed with the cigar and kind of made some derogatory comments about Honduran tobacco. I tossed that all aside. I don't really, you know, that doesn't register with me. I have to judge it for what it is. I have to decide. Now, I've had it in the humidor for a year, and the retailer that I bought it from probably had it in their stock for at least a year. So it's gotten at least, give or take, 2 years of aging. So it's pretty mellow, but you get a little pepper, you get some sweetness, and it's just pretty easygoing cigar. Not overly complex, just okay. I mean, it's a good cigar. Uh, So I'm not gonna. Well, I will get into it. But Jose, it's $13. Don't you expect? Look, it's for a good cause. So I don't care that I paid $13. I really don't. Not in this situation. I'm satisfied with what I've been getting so far. So if you're somebody that has an issue with the cost, then don't buy it. Then don't. You know. And obviously, if you're watching this, you can't buy it. I grew up in a neighborhood where Mischief Night was insane on the 30th and the 31st. For many years, we weren't allowed to go out, and when we did for the actual trick or treating on Halloween, it was early and it was quick, up and down the block from our house, maybe around the corner to some of the bodegas and small businesses that were there, and then it was back inside the house before it was just as night was beginning to fall. Because we knew what was coming. We knew the purge that was about to occur. And while definitely not on the level of the type of arson that Detroit experienced, my Brooklyn neighborhood definitely had some firebombed cars the next morning, some that were still burning the next day. And yeah, these things happened, and it really took the fun out of celebrating Halloween Eve and Halloween. But more than anything, I mean, you're waking up to the destruction of your neighborhood. So that's not fun. That's really counterproductive when people are trying to have a good time and progress. One thing is the riots in 1967 that occurred in Detroit, civil unrest, and even that, to a certain point, has to be controlled. But when we're talking about just acts of pure vandalism and hate and just stupidity, just for the fact that you want to see something burn, I can't get with that. I can't get behind that. I would never would. I could never as a kid, and even as an adult, I could never see myself getting behind something like that. And I knew a lot of people that were into it. Firebugs. They just had that arson bug in them. And whenever they could find a perfect excuse to start a fire, they would. And if it was part of attaching themselves to a rebellion or to an unrest, or just to say, fuck it, I'm gonna burn something tonight because tonight is a good night for it. And I knew people like that, and they just couldn't help themselves. Now most of them are behind bars. I'm gonna say that this cigar is a good. If you were gonna rate it, and I've said this in the past, I'm not a rater, but it's in the low 80s, maybe mid 80s. I'd go as far as to say, it's a good 80-ish type cigar. But really, it's the cause that I'm behind here. It's the cause, and I think the cigar is a decent cigar. So if it ever came back, sure, I'd buy it again. I wouldn't go buy a box of it, but maybe I would. You know why? Because I would want to support the cause, and I'd give some out to some friends and family members who do smoke cigars. So maybe I would. But I want to thank you all for watching this video, and just take a moment and appreciate what you have. And if you have a loved one or a friend, someone you care about that is in law enforcement or a firefighter, appreciate the sacrifices that they make. Thank you for watching. Until next time on Backyard Cigars.